Great. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for joining me here.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, finally. You see all these Instagram pictures, and then it's kind of like, boom. When you see the
Yeah,
people in person, it's a little different. I mean, it's not exactly in person, but hey, this is the best we can do right now. So,
yeah. It's about as good as it gets, especially from a distance. So I'll take it.
yeah. So, yeah, welcome to Don't Be Mediocre podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much. I love
So,
having a good conversation. So I'm looking to dive in.
yeah, that's the reason you're actually my first guest. You will be
Cool.
my episode number one first guest
Cool.
because we have similar backgrounds as
Yeah.
in our education and as far
Hmm.
as like career paths. And
Sure.
I've liked I forgot when I first was introduced to your page, but I liked how you took a different approach. Everyone, you see everyone this hunter athlete and everyone's
Hmm.
into the working out and the CrossFit and running and carrying
Yeah.
packs, but if you can't draw your bow back, you gotta,
Yeah.
and the shoulder, as you know, is such a delicate joint that can be like.
Yeah.
So before we get started,
Yeah.
let's get a background on you.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Christian Williams. I'm the owner of Archery Strong. And Archery Strong is a company that provides archery specific strength training for three primary goals. Number one, we work with archers to relieve pain, archers that currently have pain. We assess the shoulder and provide them with work to fix the pain. The second purpose that we serve with our training is to prevent injury and prevent pain. So a proactive approach to being a strong, healthy, functional archer through the shoulders. And then finally to improve performance. And that can be everything from having the prerequisite strength to draw a certain poundage, to hold more solidly at full draw, to have a more stable bow shoulder, and again, just to be a stronger, more solid archer all around. So essentially building the foundation that archer uses with physical capability to shoot that bow. So we provide that training, and that's my company. I started out like a lot of us, as far as found a love for fitness and a love for the outdoors, both at a pretty young age. I was blessed to have a dad that introduced me to the outdoors and took me hunting and fishing and hiking and all the above.
Where do you live? I'm sorry, where do you live? Where you're from?
I live in Western Pennsylvania. Well, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. Now I'm more in Central Pennsylvania.
Where around Scranton, that area?
Not quite that far east. I'm just south of Du Bois, Clearfield area, about an hour west or so from State College.
Yeah, I just asked because I'm from upstate New York originally. I'm
Okay.
down here in
Yes,
Texas, but
not too far.
have you ever heard of Binghamton?
Have not, no.
Okay, many people haven't. So okay, I
Yeah.
figured. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So, so I grew up doing that in Western Pennsylvania, enjoying the outdoors, and found fitness in my teenage years. It was a great, I guess, buffer support system. Going through some hard family times when I was a teenager, I got a pair of dumbbells, and it just exploded from there. I started exploring different avenues with fitness, and really came to love it. So I went on in college to study exercise physiology, biomechanics, and exercise science. Earned a couple degrees in college there, and one of the most influential things in what has allowed me to start Archery Strong and be able to effectively work with archers and provide this training is part of the way through college. I got a job at a sports injury office and sports performance office, and at this clinic, I worked for a handful of years as a movement specialist and corrective exercise specialist. So my job was to take that patient, whoever they might be, general population, athlete, once in a while an archer, but take that person, assess their movement, look for dysfunctions in lack of flexibility, lack of stability, poor movement patterns, inadequate strength, whatever it might be, assess and find the issue, and then address that issue and fix it through the use of specific individualized exercises. So I did that hands-on for years and years, and that experience was absolutely invaluable because that's what gave me the foundation and hands-on experience to be able to apply this concept to archery. So now here I am, with Archery Strong, working with archers to assess the shoulder, to address the shoulder through specific training. And it's been a blast working with archers. I have, up until this point, done a lot of different things with, or worked in a lot of different realms with CrossFit, with Olympic weightlifting, doing some different strength and conditioning and weightlifting clinics. So I've done a lot of that realm, and I really, really love that realm. But kind of to your point, David, where you said, there's a lot of the hunter athlete stuff going on, which is awesome. It's great. But I saw this kind of niche and this need that I wanted to address specific to archery, and most specifically to shoulder health, shoulder pain, and shoulder injury in archery. Like you said, one of the most important components of archery and hunting or target archery is being healthy enough through the shoulder system to be able to shoot that bow, shoot it repetitively, and shoot it well. So my main goal is to address all those components by looking at the underlying needs of the shoulders in archery.
It's funny because when you talk about that, and as you look at Instagram posts, because archery it's fun to be around, and meeting people like you and I. It's the first time we met, but I've been following you, and everyone, like we said, we focus on the workout part, but you never see it. I posted a dynamic warm up because my nephew, I'll give you a little story here. So my nephew texts me, he goes, "My shoulder's killing me. It feels like it's burning." And so, I got a background as a strength conditioning coach and work with athletes and help guys rehab and stuff. And so, the first thing comes to mind is like, okay, so where's it hurt? Where's that pain located? Start breaking it down. And he's like, "Yeah, anytime I draw my bow back." And I said, "Well, first thing you may want to stop doing is drawing your bow back." And so he explained to me everything's going on. I started explaining to him about the shoulder, the muscles. And I'll let you get more into the anatomy, the sits muscles. And for people out there, sits muscles are there's four tiny little muscles, tiny, like, they're the size of your fingers, that keep that shoulder capsule from popping out pretty much. They keep it so you can move and everything. So anyways, so I went through my little spiel with them, and I said, first thing, stop. You can take some time off. It's not going to hurt you to take time off. I said, you need to get that checked out, because he said he couldn't raise his arm above his head. And he said the pain felt like it was really very intense. So anyways, he got an MRI, and it turned out he had a tear in his subscapularis.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I told him, dude, it's the winter time. You'll be okay. Take some weeks off, recover. Your body will thank you for doing it. So, yeah. So, if you want to try and get into anatomy and tell people maybe how that shoulder joint, because that's a little ball and socket, it's not very stable or secure.
Right. Yeah. So the shoulder joint is a unique joint. It's the most mobile joint in the entire body. Like you said, David, it is a ball and socket joint. One way to think about it is like a golf ball on a tee, right? There's a small little cup.
That's good, yeah.
And then the golf ball sits on the tee. Same thing with, at the end of our arm, there's a ball, and it sits in a small little cup within the shoulder. And again, it's unique in that it is the most mobile joint in the entire body, which is a great thing. It allows us to do things like press overhead, like draw a bow, like hang from a pull-up bar, do gymnastics movements, wash our back, right? All kinds of different things. However, with that being said, when we have that much freedom in movement or flexibility or mobility, when we have that much, there does tend to be a lack of stability in the shoulder. And stability meaning, there's a lot of different ways you can look at that, but in general, stability meaning how strong is that joint, how well does it brace itself, how solid is it, how stable is it, not only when I'm holding something or moving something, but also in different positions and ranges of motion. It's one thing to have a strong shoulder when your arm's down by your side, but it's another thing to have a strong shoulder and stable shoulder when your arm's overhead or when your arm's passing through a range of motion as you draw. So there's two big components there with the shoulder, making sure, yes, it has enough flexibility with that ball and socket, which normally it does, but also making sure that it's stable and solid in all of these different ranges of motion, in all of these different positions, and through all of these different types of movement. So there's different moving parts there. We talked about the ball and socket. The socket is essentially your shoulder blade. And that shoulder blade is not only a foundation for the whole entire shoulder, but it also is a means at which we can move the arm. Without that shoulder blade moving well, correctly, and with strength, the arm can't move at full capacity. So it's a solid foundation like a house, but it also aids in the movement of the arm. So there's a lot of muscles that not only hold that shoulder blade solid, but also muscles that move that shoulder blade correctly. And that's one of the biggest issues I see with archers, is that some of those muscles just aren't either developed enough, they don't have enough control of those muscles, or they're not strong enough to get the movement they need and to get it repetitively under load, like we encounter when we shoot a bow over and over and over again. So that's that solid shoulder blade. Then we move up to the ball and socket, like the golf ball on a tee. And just like you said, David, there's 4 muscles that make up the rotator cuff. They're often called the sits muscles: the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and the subscapularis. They wrap around that ball, just kind of like fingers, like you said. And they not only hold that ball solid in the joint, but they also allow for some movement in that joint. They allow for stability of that ball inside of that socket. And I call that the real nuts and bolts of the shoulder. And that's another area that really goes under addressed in an archer, is that those muscles in some people will develop sufficiently and have enough strength and stability just by doing their normal things and shooting a bow. But not everybody is like that. Some people need to address those individually, make sure they're strong and solid and mobile the way that we need them to be to shoot a bow. And if they're not, that's where we can run into some issues. So the 2 big components we're looking there are the shoulder blade, which is the socket and the muscles that control and move that, and then the actual ball and the joint itself, which is largely made up with the rotator cuff in the way that that moves and holds the joint solid.
You know, before I go on, I want to back up a little bit. So my guess is, since we're both had similar backgrounds, I've been worked with people on the rehab side, like such as yourself.
Yeah.
And when they get in clinics, you work a lot of hours, and a lot of them tend to do things on the side, or as yourself, start their own. What was the inspiration for? Where did you see the need that archers, this was an area that you could really focus on, and I guess it's kind of like a special population.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration to, like, were you at work one day and you love to shoot your bow, and you started watching guys shoot at the range? I mean, how did Archery Strong come about? What was your inspiration to get it going?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's kind of unique. So one thing I love to do with a bow and with archery hunting here in Pennsylvania is I love to hunt groundhogs with a bow. And that's been one of my favorite things to do. It's been one of my most enjoyable things to do. And one summer I had a goal for a particular farmer here in my area. Became a good friend of mine. Was to remove 100 groundhogs off of his farm with a bow. And I wanted to do that because in the area that his farm was in, you were not allowed to discharge a rifle because of the housing developments that were starting to be built up around his farm.
Can you eat? I'm sorry. Can you eat groundhog? I've never. No. Okay. I was curious.
I shouldn't say that. You can. Some people do eat them. I have not eaten them. I always say I'm going to try them, but I haven't gotten to it. But the purpose here was, like I said, the booming suburban area around this farm prohibited the discharge of a rifle. Therefore, no one had really controlled the population of groundhogs. No one had done anything to remove some of them, and they were becoming a real problem. For those that don't know, groundhogs dig burrows and holes that make the ground unstable. Not only can livestock step into those holes and break legs, but with those burrows and holes, if that ground caves in, it can flip a tractor if it's under the weight of a tractor, cause issues for farm equipment, and just crop damage. Groundhogs will eat numerous times their body weights in vegetation in a week. So a a lot of different issues with these groundhogs here at this farm, and they were completely overpopulated. To give you an idea, this farm was about 300 acres or so, and taking 100 groundhogs off of this farm was barely scratching the surface. So I had this goal to help this old farmer friend of mine, 82-year-old guy that is still farming, still pushing at 82 years old, and that was my goal. So to be able to harvest 80 or 100 groundhogs with a bow, I was practicing a lot, I was shooting a lot, and one day I was thinking, you know, I do a lot of shoulder work and shoulder strengthening and shoulder corrective exercise for CrossFitters and weightlifters and baseball players and different people and athletes. I'm sure that there are some things that I could do to help my shoulders with how much I'm shooting, with how much I'm trying to practice, and with this big goal I have for archery hunting. I'm sure there's something I can do to help my shoulders and preserve my shoulder health. So sure enough, I do. I start playing with some corrective exercises for myself, targeted for archery, and you know, I like it. I feel good. I'm shooting. Eventually, that summer, I meet my goal with 139 groundhogs, not all from that farm, but over 100 from that farm, and 139 or 138 in total with a bow from some different farms in the area. And I just started to get thinking about it more and more.
That was it. Just you no help. You did it all. 139.
Yeah, just by myself. Yeah.
Nice job.
Thank you. And I started thinking about it more and more. And I was in a tree stand one October evening at one of my favorite farms back home, and I was able to make a good shot on a doe that evening. And I remember being excited and called my dad and told him I had a doe down. And I was sitting up in the tree stand just thinking, man, I love these archery experiences so much. You know, archery means so much to me, and I know it means so much to other people. I want to see what I can do to help other archers make sure that they can have experiences like this, to make sure that experiences like this are never taken away from them, whether that be shoulder pain, shoulder injury, or just a lack of ability to shoot a bow. So I decided that night I wanted to go for it. And I started thinking over the next couple of months after deciding I could help some archers, whether it be 1 or 100 or 1,000, whatever it might be. And I started to put together some ideas, started to shoot some videos, started to put some stuff out on social media, and started to grow my own knowledge, you know, continue to learn, continue to test methodologies and apply things in the sports injury office that I was working at, continue to build my knowledge on what works, what doesn't work. And I continue to develop training systems, started to put some stuff out there, and it's really grown, and I've been able to help a lot of people, and it's been a really fun journey. So it started with just trying some stuff out myself, working at the sports injury office, doing this stuff. And it's kind of funny, it's a little bit backwards, where as I started to do more and more of this with archers, I continually and each day realize how much this is needed. Where if I had just looked in the beginning like a smart business person would have, hey, is there a need in this market for this service? I didn't. I just kind of assumed maybe it would be helpful. Started putting stuff out there, and then I realized, wow, there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of lack of help for people who run into pain and injury and issues as far as the physical side of things in archery. So a little bit backwards, but I'm glad to see that I can help people and continue to reach more people.
Yeah, because if you look on social media, like I said, all you see is people doing the deed, you know, putting in the work and stuff, but they're not, you never see anyone doing a pre-warm-up or exercises to get their body, you know, something dynamic to get that heart rate and that body temperature up. Some guys will just draw that bowl cold, and then it's like,
yep.
And as you know, I mean, I'm older, so I know I value my warm-up. Like I'll
Sure.
do a warm-up every time before I shoot. So
sure.
let's say, so if you clearly work with people around the country, right? You
Yeah.
People will contact you. So
Yep.
how does one, say I'm in Montana and I come across Archery Strong Instagram, I'm like, wow, man, yeah, I've been experiencing pain in my shoulder, and I reach out to you. What happens next? Do you ask for them to shoot a video for you? Do you do a live? How's it work?
Yeah, so if someone's experiencing shoulder pain or shoulder issues and they want to fix the issues, I meet with them through a video call, really just like this, what you and I are doing right now, David, either a Zoom or a FaceTime. And I normally spend about an hour with them. And we start by talking through the issue, discussing what's been going on, what their past experience has been, their current experience has been, find all those little details while we're talking over this video call that are going to be important information to fix this issue. And then I do an assessment for the shoulder. And that can be different tests of range of motion, different positional tests to see what's painful, what's weak, and sometimes shooting as well, and go through all these different pieces of the assessment, essentially trying to gather as much information as we can about this individual through this video call. And then based on that information that we find, I then put a specific customized corrective exercise program for them that takes them through the process and progresses them through the process of loading the shoulder, retraining the shoulder and how it moves, maybe opening some mobility or range of motion, maybe a little bit of strength training. It all just depends on what that individual needs. And then they go throughout a 3 to 4 week process to start, or a 4-week process to start. We monitor the progress, we communicate back and forth, and then typically we'll keep extending that out. They'll start to notice decreases in pain, or pain may go away altogether, and then we keep working on that shoulder to make it strong and solid so that we're proactive for the future. So there's definitely a big component of communication and talking via a video call like this, and then a process of those specific customized corrective exercises geared towards that individual and their needs. So like you said, I work with men and women all across the country. I've been working a lot with some youth archers that are more in the target archery community across the country. I have clients truly across the world. Right now, I have my client list next to me, and I have a client from Scotland, Spain, Australia, India, and some other places. So it's been really neat to be able to meet these different people and work with them and help them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's like, that is the beauty of social media. You know,
yeah. I have to admit, a lot of times I really don't like social media. It's not fun to have to be involved with all the time, but I guess it does. It is a fair trade-off to be able to connect with people and meet people and help people. So
yeah. So is there certain like prescription routine that you will have them suggest as they go through, once they finish with you? Is there like a certain routine you should suggest to them, like before shooting, a certain type of warm up, and then when they're doing continue with the exercises, I guess I'm trying to say, that you give them?
Yeah. And it varies per individual. You know, like I said, most people, once they feel and see the benefit of doing specific work like this, they'll stick with me, and we'll continue on through the process. And there's so many layers to uncover and to address here. So a lot of people will continue with me. But if they say, hey, you know, I don't have any pain anymore, I'm shooting without pain, I feel good, you know, thank you for your help, what should I do from here on out? Yeah, absolutely. We'll identify some of the exercises that are most important with them, and they'll keep up with those, or we'll put together a small kind of little bit of a routine that they'll work through. And soon I'm going to be coming out with a very simple weekly progressions that people can do, that they don't necessarily have pain. They just want to have healthy shoulders, strong shoulders, functional shoulders. And this is something I'm going to put out that's going to be quick and simple and easy to follow. So that's going to be a great route that I'm excited for.
So I watched some videos of you, and when you draw your bow, I noticed your bow arm will be straight out in front where it should be,
Yep.
and you start low, and you'll draw back, and then you raise your elbow and shoulder up. Is there a reason? Is that good for the shoulder joint? How you do that? You pull down and you bring that up. How?
Yeah, so that's a loaded question. So like you said, for those that aren't watching, for a compound bow, I draw what I like to be about level, right? Where my forearm is about level with the ground, and then I'll raise up a bit to the anchor point. And it's a very loaded question, and that's one that often gets a very strong debate. And the thought process behind that is, we know that through the research and by just looking at individual shoulders and how they move and how flexible and stable they are one versus another, that everybody's shoulder is a little bit different, right? So for instance, we may have some people that are really flexible and they have a lot of range of motion. We have some people that are a little bit tighter and in certain ranges of motion are tighter. If we get down deep in that shoulder and look at the actual ball and socket itself, we see irregularities there in the research. So moral of the story being is that everybody's shoulder is a little bit different. So what we see and what you're seeing in me is a little bit of a variation in draw style. You'll see some individuals that draw really high and really
Oh yes.
overhead over the top. You'll see some individuals that draw a little bit more like me that try to draw about level, about throat level, and then raise a little bit up to anchor, and then you'll see everything in between. And again, that's accounting for the structural and functional differences within the shoulder. The picture I often paint is if you go to a gym and you see 5 people lined up at squat racks, everybody will be doing a squat, right? And it's the same general squat, but you'll see some people whose feet are a little bit flared out. You'll see some people with a little closer stance, a little wider stance. You'll see some people that have a little bit more of an upright torso versus a little bit more of an incline. And that is accounting for the differences in structure and function in the hip joint, the ankle joint, the knee joint, and then up into the upper body. So just like you see a little bit of difference in the squat because everybody's mechanics and body is different, you're going to see a little bit of a different draw style based on how that person's shoulder functions and what the structure of that person's shoulder is. Now, again, I often will get a lot of debate on that because in archery, a lot of times there is an effort to put people and force people into a one-size-fits-all movement pattern and say, this is what you need to look like, this is what you need to do. And that is the ideal, absolutely. It's not wrong by any sense, but what ends up happening is for an individual that doesn't have the mobility in the shoulder joint, doesn't have the structure of the shoulder joint to support that, they might have a lack of stability, whatever it might be. If you force them into a movement pattern that doesn't work for them, then we often run into problems where we'll get either compensation irritations, we'll get overload of particular muscles or joint structures that we don't want to overload. So kind of case in point to your question is I am a little bit out of the norm. And again, that is based on the difference in structure and function. For me particularly, I can either draw really high overhead and with my arm fully up above elbow height, I can draw there, or I can draw right at that level point and then come up to my anchor point. Anywhere in between will irritate the back of my shoulder just based on how much rotation I have in my individual shoulder. So I choose I don't particularly like putting myself in that overhead position every time. I don't want to make myself an overhead athlete if I don't need to. So that's where I tend to draw a little bit lower. And that's a little bit closer to where I'm going to draw when I shoot a recurve as well. So they stay a little bit more parallel one another. So that stays congruent from one draw style to another.
So when you have a consultation and you analyze someone and you watch, is that one of the things you have them do is you show them, you have them draw their bow for you so they can you can kind of get a feel for, because when we're going back to the draw styles, could it also be people are also compensating for weaknesses? That's why they're draw a certain way.
Sure, absolutely. And that's my job to identify how somebody needs to draw and why they need to draw that way. So I'll look at the shoulder and I'll see, okay, what can this shoulder do? What is the range of motion like? What positions are strong and comfortable? What positions are painful and weak? And we'll take all of this information as we look at the shoulder itself, and we'll find the draw style that's going to be most comfortable, smoothest, and strongest, and pain-free, of course, for that individual. And what I find time and time again is that there's a wide range. I have some people that do best in that higher draw style. I have some people that do best in a little bit of that lower draw style around the neck region, everywhere in between. So again, it comes down to what does that individual's shoulder do best with? How do they function best? And what do they feel in that draw? You can take just about every archer on the planet and you can put them into a position that is uncomfortable and that is going to cause pain based on their shoulder. You can also find the particular draw style or position that is comfortable and pain-free. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. And like you said, you can have kind of both sides of the coin. You can have somebody that's drawing a certain way because that's what feels best and functions best for them. Or you can have somebody that's drawing a certain way because they are compensating or they are avoiding something. So again, that's a very layered process that comes down to looking at the shoulder function, looking at what their symptoms are, looking at how they move, what other outside factors as far as draw weight or arrow volume or again, function of the shoulder, what all is influencing that. So it's a puzzle for sure, and it's a challenging puzzle. But as long as we look at those individual components, then we can normally find the most comfortable, confident, smooth, and pain-free range of motion for drawing for that individual.
Before I forget, so my nephew's a big fan of yours. He works at an archery shop upstate New York, and I told him I'd ask him a question. I'm reading it verbatim, how he wrote it out. So, okay. One question he has is, for a guy like him who hauls a 20-pound climber with a 40-pound pack into the woods, what best exercises to avoid a shoulder injury and or back injury while hauling that kind of weight? So I asked the question. I'm not sure how well it came across, but let's go for
it. Yeah, sure. So it sounds like he's carrying a pretty respectable load on his shoulders, and he's carrying it through the woods. Like you said, pack and climber, I've been there. So that is a perfect example of what we call axial loading, right? Where we've got a load that's pushing straight down through the spine, straight down through the framework. It starts with having strong legs to move that load and support that load, strong hips and core right at the center to make sure that we're strong through the center of the framework, and then a shoulder girdle that has strength to maintain the structural integrity and the solidness as he's bearing that load. So that is a process of strengthening each component and strengthening it well, strengthening them well. Your legs obviously have to move that load and have to climb with that load. So you're looking at your main staples for leg strengthening and trunk strengthening as far as your squat variations, your lunge variations, and your hinging variations, and other unilateral variations like a lateral lunge, step ups, etc. So strengthening the legs, strengthening the hips and the trunk. Then we move up to the hips and the core complex. And that's going to be a lot of bracing and bracing under load. So for something like that, instead of looking at flexion or rounding of the torso and the back, something like sit-ups and things like that, instead of looking at that, I really favor your plank variations, your hollow variations, anything where you're laying on your back, keeping a nice hollow brace position, or plank variations where you are really highlighting that midsection's ability to stay strong and hold solid. So that's going to be a big component. Then you move up to the shoulder girdle, and that shoulder girdle is always going to benefit from high quality, strong pulling variations as far as rowing variations, and then your staple pushing variations, whether that be horizontal pushing such as push-ups, weighted push-ups, presses. I'm a big fan of overhead presses if that's something he can do. I don't know with his shoulder history, but that's going to lay a lot of the groundwork and the integrity for building the strength there. And then you have what I consider kind of like your secondary strength builders for the upper body, and that's going to be your shoulder work, your rows, your A's, Y's, I's, and T's, your different holds for the shoulders, things like that. And then last but not least, one of my absolute favorite things in strength and conditioning that I think is often missed is as many high quality, loaded, weighted carries as possible. They are just
Like
so beneficial, especially
like
something.
farmers
Yeah,
carries
so
talking.
we're thinking about farmers carries, Zercher carries, where it's like you're carrying a body on your front side.
I
Carries
saw
with,
that you had that big stump log and you
yeah,
had two handles on it.
yeah.
So that's something you recommend holding straight out in front of you
Oh,
and just walk with
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times preparing for a physical task is a lot about staying as in line or congruent with the physical task as possible. So,
Yeah.
hey, if I'm going to be carrying a pack on my shoulders, then let me support weight through my shoulder girdle, whether that's farmer's carry, Zercher carry out in front of me, carry on a single shoulder, kettlebell carry in the goblet position, front rack position, high-low carry. I mean, there's so many different carries that we can load the body up with, load the system up with. And then that's going to require you to move that weight with your legs, stabilize up through the hips and the trunk and the midsection, and then hold solid in that shoulder girdle. So that's one of your best friends. And it doesn't have to be fancy. You know, like you said, you saw me doing that with a stump. I do it with logs. I've got a couple stones I do carries with, kettlebells, dumbbells. You know, anything that's heavy, you can figure out a way to carry it.
So what you're telling me is you prefer multiple joint exercises over leg extensions. So someone, yeah,
Just about
what you
every
know,
day of the week.
yeah, I
Yeah.
I used to be big in bodybuilding, you know, not like into it, but you know, I was into it, just the fascination. You see all these guys on machines and stuff, and then
Sure.
once you start getting involved and learn how the body works and learn how you're benefiting by doing like a power clean, you're working so much with just one
Yeah,
exercise. Where leg
absolutely.
extension, as you know, you're just working that knee joint. And
Absolutely.
the besides the fact that the amount of torque that's placed on that knee joint from doing that leg extension in that position. So yeah, I've always been fond of the triple extension, like power clean squats,
Mhm.
movements like
Yeah.
that. So with that being said, let's go for your top 3 shoulder exercises, guys, that you would recommend people do that'll definitely benefit shoulder strength and mobility and help a little bit, not much, so much flexibility, but you know, those components. What would be 3 exercises that guys could do, or women
Sure.
too?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
What's that?
I said women too. I'm sorry. I forgot to.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. You know, there's obviously a lot of exercises, and like we said, the shoulder joint is so complex that there are a lot of moving parts that either go untouched or aren't hit sufficiently enough with just a couple of exercises. But if I had to pick like 3 of the main staples, I definitely like pull apart variations and band pull apart variations to hit the musculature that retracts and squeezes the shoulder blades together. Also hits part of the rotator cuff on the back side, the posterior side of the shoulder. There's a bunch of variations that can be done that way, and I really, really like those. Next, I really like different plank variations, just supporting the body weight and in the different variations and doing single arm work is very valuable for not only the scap but the rotator cuff. The caveat with those is that they have to be done in the correct shoulder position, and that often can be butchered. So those need to be done correctly, but different plank and hold variations are really valuable. And then the last one is that I really like what I call floor press variations, and not a floor press with dumbbells or a barbell, but floor press where I'm laying supine on my back, or I'm laying on my back, my knees are bent, and I have my arms overhead resting on the floor in different positions, in different variations where I'm pushing into the floor to engage shoulder blades to use range of motion instead of just cranking on it and stretching. And I'm using range of motion and activating those shoulders in different ranges of motion, different positions. There's a lot of variations that can be done there, and there's a lot of opportunity to stabilize the shoulder from different positions there.
What about flexibility? Are there certain exercises or yoga that you would recommend or highly suggest, guys? Because you know, that's one thing people neglect too, is flexibility, especially as you age, it
Yeah.
becomes very important.
Yeah. you know, personally, just my personal view is I really only do flexibility or stretching with the individuals that need it. And what I mean by that is, you know, like for instance, one of my most recent clients that I did an assessment with a week or so ago, a gentleman from Spain. We went through and tested his shoulders out, and he is very mobile, very flexible, very mobile. He has all the range of motion he needs. So with him, I'm not going to do any stretching because he already has the prerequisite range of motion he needs to get into all of the positions that he would possibly want to get into. So instead of stretching, I'm going to use all of his range of motion. So I'll take him into end ranges of motion. I'll take him into full flexion, full external rotation. I'll take him into those different positions, but instead of stretching them and just cranking out passive range of motion that he doesn't really need, I'll have him strengthen and stabilize and get strong in those ranges of motion. So I just like to put that out there in front as far as if somebody has all of the range of motion they need, I'm going to get them to use the range of motion and do movements through the range of motion. For instance, instead of stretching my arm all the way overhead and doing different things where I'm cranking that shoulder to push it farther overhead, if somebody already has that range of motion, I'm going to have them do different pressing variations to use that range of motion. I'm going to have them do different floor pressing variations, like I said, where I take them overhead and have them push into that range of motion. I'm going to have them do different banded work where they take bands overhead and get strong and use that range of motion and push into it. It's almost like a green light where, hey, this person gets to the stoplight. If they have the flexibility they need to do everything they need, I'm going to send them through and they're going to move on to the next thing. If the individual is tight and needs flexibility, and that often is the case in guys specifically, we do tend to be tighter than most of the women that I see, then yes, I like to target the different ranges of motion with really high quality controlled stretches, meaning that I'm going to make sure that the position encourages the most flexibility and the best stretching for that particular range of motion that we want, whether I'm stretching the pec minor, whether I'm stretching external rotation, whether I'm stretching flexion for overhead to get that shoulder higher overhead. I'm not just going to have them, normally I'm just not going to have them grab a band and, just stretch that arm overhead, because there's all kinds of things going on in the body and the torso that is going to deplete that stretch. So instead, I'm going to put them in a good quadruped position. I'm going to have them use the right heights of an implement to get that arm in the right position, fix that arm in the right position, center the torso, make sure that torso and shoulder girdle is positioned the way that it needs to be positioned, and then get into a good quality stretch. So it's definitely specific, and again, it's specific to the individual. What I'll find a lot of times, and I had again an assessment recently that the gentleman was tight in flexion, and that's the ability to get the arm up overhead. He was tight in that range of motion, so we do want to stretch that range of motion. But as far as rotational abilities, his ability to externally and internally rotate, he's completely clear. So I have very little reason to do any stretching in that range of motion. The other range of motion where he does have some restriction and tightness, sure, I will stretch that range of motion. But stretching where it's not needed can lead to, if it doesn't lead to problems in the long term, it can at least lead to inability to reach full potential, because I'm stretching and I'm getting all of this flexibility, great, but if I don't have stability and strength and control in that shoulder along with the flexibility, then I'm going to be missing a lot of the boat, particularly for archery.
And as far as warm-ups go, I see you got some neat little exercises with just an arrow. So guys could literally
put out recently.
Yeah, guys could literally be at the range,
Yeah.
and right before they go, they just take an arrow and do a few warm-up exercises. Yeah. And prevention is the key to everything. And if you could prevent, as we talked about, the shoulder is so delicate. If I had a basketball player. Here's a story. I was at the University of Colorado, back my own. That's where I graduated from. I was back coaching there, and I was an assistant strength coach, and basketball was my team. Yeah. And we had a practice guy. He wasn't a starter or anything, And he had previously had 3 shoulder surgeries, I believe, on the same shoulder. And
Wow.
he was, you know, he was on practice squad, so he was defending a guy. I'm not lying to you, Christian. He raised his arm and to just stretch out, and all of a sudden you just hear him go, oh, and his shoulder drops, he grabs, and he knew what happened. And he dislocated his shoulder just by raising his arm.
Yeah,
So
that's classic example of an unstable shoulder.
yeah. So I mean, that was like, I think that was like, so he finally had that capsule tightened up, but that was like surgery number 4, I believe. Yeah. Each time it was easier, as you know, to dislocate. So guys, take care of your shoulders. That's why Christian is here. So what's the future plans? What we got looking ahead? We got any seminars we're gonna be doing, traveling around the country? What's going on with you?
Yeah, in March, I am not going far, but I'm going over to Lancaster, and I am doing a seminar with a gentleman by the name of Dan Staten. He is from Elk Shape, and
Oh yeah, Dan. Yep.
Yeah, so he does some camps, getting guys ready for elk hunting through everything from the physical training side, from the knowledge behind elk hunting to calling, and I'm going to be doing the shoulder work. And so I'll be doing that. I'm looking forward to that. I think I mentioned earlier in this is one of my main goal is obviously to help people. So I am looking to find a way to make this training as accessible as possible. And essentially, I'm going to be reformatting some of the training that we're offering, but I'm going to have 3 tiers to try to meet all the needs of different people. Number one, or the highest tier, is individualized coaching, and that is like the assessments and the pain relief work, like we talked about. I work with some pretty top-end archers with customized, individualized one-on-one training. So that's the highest tier that I'm going to have. I'm going to have, as a middle tier, a generalized program that if someone just wants, hey, give me the 4 weeks of work and I'll work through it, and that's all I want, that's all I need. We'll have that program laid out as a second tier. That's an option kind of in the middle of the ground. And the one I'm really excited for that I'm in the works of putting together is, like I said, this weekly shoulder progressions meant to create shoulders and archers that are healthy, strong, and functional. That's simple, minimal equipment that they can follow along, and it's progressive. So it progresses through. It starts all the way down at the foundation, developing shoulder awareness and positioning, all the way from, we're going to address core, flexibility in the shoulders, strength and stability in the shoulders. And then each week they'll have the ability to move on and do the next progression and work through that, and then move on to the next progression. So that's going to be not customized, not overly excessive, or not overly comprehensive, but it's going to be the real good fundamental foundation type work that any archer can do, that's going to be really accessible for them.
Cool.
So that will be
And I
the
know
lowest.
okay, I'm sorry. What was that? I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I just said that's going to be the lowest, simplest, most accessible tier for most people.
Okay. And I noticed your wife, is she also involved with Archery Strong? I see she
No,
was drawing the pictures off.
No, she's just a gem. She helps me when I need it. She helps
That's
either
cool.
shoot videos. She's right now painting a sign for our training barn, which is what you may have seen recently. But no, she's wonderful. She just does any of the side things or back end things that I need. But it is a one-man show over here right now.
Does she shoot as well? Is she archer as well?
She does not. No, she does not.
Okay. So the moral of the story, people, is Christian is here to help you. You know, we see the lift, run, shoot. Well, we need the pre-warm-up exercise, lift, run, shoot. And that way your shoulder stays protected. It's great. You can squat a lot and bench, but if you don't have strong shoulders in the long run, you're going to pay. And Christian is here to help you at Archery Strong. So give everyone, how can they get a hold of you? What are all the ways, Instagram, social media? What are all the ways they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. Social media, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is archery.strong. I'm most active there. I answer all the messages I get. So feel free to just shoot a message if you have any questions or you're curious about anything, curious about training, or just anything at all. I'm happy to talk. I am also on Facebook, but everything I do on Instagram just gets pushed into Facebook too. So I'm not hardly active on there. I'm primarily on Instagram. And then I have a website, which is archery-strong.com. on that website talks a lot about what we do, what we offer. That will be showing the new stuff we're going to be offering soon. There is a contact page. There's a great way to get a hold of me and get in contact with me. And then lastly, you can email me at christian@archery-strong.com. There's a dash between archery and strong on the website and on the email. So I'm always happy to hear from people, always happy to answer questions or just talk and see how I can help. So feel free to reach out.
And from your website, can they access those programs you're talking about, or they can sign
Absolutely.
up? Okay.
Yep, absolutely. The more generalized stuff, as far as generalized programs that we have right now, and we'll be modifying here soon, and the shoulder assessment plus the corrective exercise process is also on there as well. Anybody that is interested in customized training or something really specific, you can reach out to me through an email or through a message on Instagram, and we can discuss that further.
Sweet. And you doing like spring turkey hunting this year? You turkey hunt?
I do. Not nearly as much. Yeah, primarily. Yeah, I recently moved to the new area in central Pennsylvania. So I don't know how much I'll be in there. I had back home, I had a couple of farms that I really knew well for turkeys, and quite honestly wasn't super challenging. So I'll probably pop home a time or two to do some turkey hunting around home. But I'll probably do some turkey hunting up in the new area, try to find some turkeys. But in the spring, like I think I mentioned, groundhog hunting with a bow is one of my favorite things to do. So I'll be chasing them or searching for them a lot this spring.
How about the elk there in Pennsylvania? You apply every year to try and get a tag?
I don't. I now live closer to them. I'm about an hour south of where the herd spends some time. But I have not applied yet. I will get to that in the future. I guess just other things are taking priority right now. I want to be, I guess you can't be too picky with that process, but I keep telling myself that I want to be in a position where I can actually do it, and that's going to be coming up here soon. But prior, I was still in school and between jobs and starting this business and doing some different things. So we'll see.
Any plans of hunting? Are you gonna make the trek out west like everyone wants to do now, out west in the mountains, or no?
Eventually, nothing planned as of right now. I just got married this past August, like I said.
Oh, congrats!
And bought a home, and so it's again not a top priority right now. So I'm still trying to figure out the whitetails here in Pennsylvania, let alone. I've got a good friend that hunts out west, and I tagged along with him 2 years ago for an awesome elk hunt where we were able to kill a bull. So nice. I would definitely join in for something like that eventually if that opportunity ever came up. So we'll see.
Well, I'm going to be moving to Montana in the near future, so we'll stay in touch. You need a place to stay. Hey,
I appreciate it, David. Awesome.
Yeah, and I got the wildlife biologist for Pennsylvania coming on soon. We're going to talk the elk management there in Pennsylvania and how he's successful. Yeah, so
cool.
Yeah, so pay attention and listen in so you can leader bite the elk in your state. So little selfish plug there for myself.
Sure. Yeah. No. Hey. No. Nothing wrong with that.
No. Hey, listen. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this. This is my first. You broke my cherry as far as the podcasting goes, and
awesome.
It'll soon. I've been approved for every platform but Apple, and the only reason why is my artwork. Oh, dude, it's a nightmare. I've been going through, but it'll be on Spotify. I'm gonna edit this, and it'll be up soon. But yeah, once I get Apple to approve my artwork, then I'll have all the platforms covered. So, but awesome. Yeah, this is awesome, dude. You all need to listen to this guy because he can educate you and help you. And that's the key for the long run of your body stability and your shoulder joint and staying healthy. So contact Christian. He gave you his place, Instagram, archery.strong, right?
Archery.strong on Instagram.
Archery.strong on Instagram. That's a spot where you guys can most reach him, and he does reach right back to you. Trust me, I've messaged him, and he's pretty much same day gets back to you. So he's a busy guy. Let's keep him busy and let's get him successful here. And he's trying to help people. So great job, Christian, man. I like your stuff.
Awesome.
That's why I'm glad we had a time to talk, and you were my first guest.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was a great conversation. I appreciate the opportunity. Glad we could get this thing rolling, and best of luck to you as you move forward. Thank you for everybody listening.
And when you get that rollout where you got those tiers and stuff and things start going, let's get back together again and touch base and see how the program's going and get more people involved.
Cool. Yep, I'd love it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. All right, man. You have a great weekend.
All right. Thanks. Same to you, David.
Bye, Christian.
See ya.